Hey everyone, and welcome back to Suited Aces Poker, where every week we review hundreds of poker hands from poker vloggers across YouTube and bring you 10 of the best. Thanks for sticking with us while we've been absent for the last couple of weeks. This is the second of 5 videos that we'll be uploading in rapid succession to bring us all up to date. Hey, if you haven't already, click that like button and the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a whole bunch, and we really appreciate all of the support. All right, what have we got in this week's selection? We have got some excellent commentary. We've got some ballsy bets, and we've got opponents that just do not understand poker math. So without further ado, let's make a start. Number 10 this week, and the Poker Beast is playing in a 1-3 cash game at the Jamul Casino in Jamul, California. And there's a ballsy bet on the river here, but will Poker Beast get it through?
I take a peek at Jack 9 offsuit in middle position. The businessman to my right makes a big bet to 25. And once again, I start to get a little carried away. I decide I'm going to make the call. It folds around to the small blind. The small blind defends 3 ways, going to the flop, 78 in the pot, and it comes out 3 queen king. Almost the exact situation as the last hand. A gut shot to the 10, 2 undercards. The small blind checks, and the businessman is going to continue trying to sell us on the story that he has the best hand. He makes it 30 with a continuation bet. I have equity to a very strong hand, and my implied odds against the businessman are absolutely massive. And so I decide I'm going to make the call. The small blind wants a piece of the action. He makes the call as well. 168 already in this pot. We're looking for a 10 on the turn, but we get a deuce instead, a deuce of diamonds. The small blind checks, and interestingly enough, the middle position player checks as well. So action's on me, and I've noticed with this player, he likes to make continuation bets. He likes to bet big on the flop. He'll continue firing the turn if he has something, but he often gives up when he doesn't have anything. So I think I should go for a big bluff, and I do. I make it 150, and I said all those brilliant things the hand before, and take that kind of thinking and throw it out the window for this hand. I can immediately think of some better bluffs like ace-5 of diamonds or ace-10. You can hit your ace for a potential out on both of those. Not to mention, these two players are able to call very wide. One of them went all in pre-flop with king-9 of diamonds, and you know about the businessman to my right. So maybe I should have thought this one through a little bit more. The small blind folds, but the sticky bandit to my left is trying to leave me home alone with no chips. He puts 150 in, and this pot is getting out of control quickly, and I already know I'm going to be faced with a big decision on the river. Here it goes. And there it goes. What the hell happened there? Okay, let's see what the card is. My heart is beating. It's a 5. The poker gods aren't bailing us out of this one. My opponent checks to me, and now we reach the crescendo, the climax of the session. The decision that will make or break me. Do I check? Do I give up the hand? Do I forfeit $500? Or do I consider the fact that he's been opening every hand pre-flop, would not have checked the turn if he picked up a diamond draw or had a strong hand, and is playing way too passively, calling down way too lightly with a very wide range? If you remember back to the very first hand when he almost called a $100 bet with absolutely nothing. So who knows what he's calling the turn bet with? I take a deep breath and ship it into the center, all in. Oh my gosh. Hell, this is what I see Garrett do all the time, put on max pressure. Let's listen into the table.
Don't have much. Yeah. King, queen? No. Jack 9. Nothing. Nothing. I didn't have much.
Number 9 this week, and Doug McCusker is playing at the Capital Casino in Sacramento, California. He's in a 1-3 cash game, but do we agree with Zeus on this one? How could Doug have maximized his hand?
I'm just finishing up stacking my chips when I look down at 2 deuces in the small blind. There's a player who opened for 13, and there's a slew of callers, so for the extra money, I'm going to set mine with my pocket deuces. I'm pretty sure the person who opened up under the gun has a big pair. He's a very conservative player. So we're going to go off to a flop, and it comes out 3-3 deuce. What a beautiful flop that is. I check it over to the initial raiser. He bets out for 45. Now the player in middle position, who has about $640 in his stack, puts in a quick call for the 45. I'm thinking he has a 3. What else would he do this? He might do this with an overpair, maybe something like 7s or 8s or something like that. Anyways, folded back around to me, and thinking that he really has a 3 in this spot, I decided to raise to 145. The initial bettor decides that he's going to fold his hand, thinking that I made full house with 3s last hand. So he mucks his cards, and he kind of flashed that he had the 10 in his hand. So he probably had something like pocket 10s. The other player asked, how much is it? And the dealer responded, an extra 100, and he quickly puts it in. So right now, I'm really thinking he has a 3 in his hand, maybe something like ace 3, maybe 3-4. So our stack sizes are a little bit odd. He has about 480 left, and the pot's 420. So it's a little over a pot-sized bet left. I was trying to think what's the best way to get the money in. If he has a 3, he's probably going to bet if I check to him, so I thought about check raising. But I figured he might also have something like an overpair, so I didn't want to give him that opportunity to not pay for his draw. I also thought about betting a smaller size and then trying to get action from him then, but I just think he really has a 3. So I told myself, as long as a blank comes, I think I'm just going to bet big. And the only bet that really makes sense when you bet big is an all-in. If he has a 3, I don't think he's going to be folding at all. So I just go ahead and shove. I expect him to call right away. I really can't think what else he would be thinking about. But as time went by, I realized that this was a huge mistake on my part. I think I should have went with like the $200 bet. Instead, he goes in the tank and he's in there for at least 2 minutes. The longer he took, the more I realized that I made a grave error. I think I could have got at least an extra 200 out of him. He's definitely thinking about calling this. He's also thinking about laying it down. He ends up finding the fold. Later, he told me that he had 4-5 of diamonds, and he was thinking about calling it off. So a smaller bet would have definitely got paid in this situation.
I think the best way to handle this is to attack his entire range and not just one specific part of his range. I think a small bet on the turn and then follow through on the river with an all-in would be much better than to shove on the turn. You're giving him a chance to get away, and that's exactly what he did. You can't really tell what he had. If he had a 3, he was going to pay you off whether you go for 2 bets or 1 large bet. But by going for the 1 large bet, you lost the person with a straight draw.
Number 8 this week, and we're back with the Poker Beast at the Jamul Casino. 2 this week for the Poker Beast, and he's still playing in the 1-3 cash game. And there's an excellent call on the river in this hand, with a really good example of why you really should take your time in difficult spots.
And then I get a suitable king 10 of clubs in the hijack to play. There's an under the gun straddle. Action folds to me. I open it up to 15, and the player directly to my left starts to grab chips. So he grabs one of the 15, puts out a $45 bet. Action comes back to me. I can definitely fold this hand because I'm out of position with a mediocre hand that often comes in second best. But whenever someone 3Xs with the 3 bet, I'm always tempted to call. It's not that much more. So I put in the 45. We're headed to the flop. I'm looking to get lucky. I'm going to need it. The flop comes out ace high. I do pair my 10s, but that ace is not a good card to be looking at. I check to my opponent, and he immediately grabs chips again, does a casual 55 into the center, and I get carried away again. I make the call. I'm blocking his ace kings. If he doesn't have an ace, I have him beat. We go to the turn. It comes out a 5, and I check to my opponent, and he decides to check back, and so now I'm starting to think maybe my hand is good. The river comes out a blank, and I send the action over to my opponent, hoping he just checks behind, but he has other plans. He's going to go firing again, and he blasts out a bet of 105. Well, it's only a half-size pot bet, and the way I see this hand is he continuation bet on the flop. Concerned that I had an ace on the turn, he checked it, and now that I've checked again on the river, he's trying to steal the pot from me. It comes down to, does he have an ace, or does he not? Because he's not going to be doing this with kings, queens, jacks. As I gently shuffle a single chip on top of my 100 stack, I think back through the hand, and I also think about the player. This guy isn't the kind of guy who only 3-bets with premiums. He can 3-bet with a good range of hands, and the size of this river bet and the way he played the hand makes me suspicious enough to put in the call, and he immediately shows the bluff. 9-8 of diamonds. I flip over my hand, and I'm going to be taking down a well-earned, well-won pot. Feels fantastic making the right call. Hero calls are always a little dangerous. I often tend to find the folds, but I'm starting to understand hands a little bit better, starting to be able to find those spots that don't make sense.
Number 7 this week, and Rob Rickermann is playing at the South Point Casino in Las Vegas. He is in a 2-5 cash game, and there's some really good commentary in this hand that helps make an otherwise strange hand make complete sense.
Okay, to the next hand that I could probably make a whole video on alone. We pick up Queen 7 suited in the hijack. Button straddle is on for 10. One player limps from middle position, and I decide to raise to 50. All right, let's pause and talk about why. I know what some of you are thinking, Rob, Queen 7 suited, what are you doing? Well, sometimes you're in a game where players aren't really playing back at you very much, and you can be a little bit more aggressive in position, especially in a deeper game. So that's the case in this game, and I'm going to be punishing limpers a lot. So that's what we have here. We got a player who limps for 10. I go ahead and make it 50. A lot of times I'm just going to take down the blinds and make 30 bucks. But if I do get called, hey, I'm in position, and most likely no one's going to play back. So let's go from here. So I made it 50 bucks. Button straddle folds. Action's on the small blind who decides to just call 50. I can kind of put him on a range of hands, probably middle pocket pairs, maybe some suited broadways. Not strong enough to 3-bet. And then that brings in the limper from middle position who calls the 50. So we go 3 ways to a flop. Ace, King, 6 with the Ace, King of diamonds. So we have nothing. Action checks over to me. Now let's talk about why I'm going to bet. All right, let's take this back to pre-flop because it's important to start putting your opponents on ranges, right? So when middle position player limps for 10, I actually have some information on him though. He typically limps with his weak hands, raises with ace jack or better. So we can already rule out aces, kings, and ace king from him. He'd be opening, or if he was setting the trap, he would have limp re-raised, right? And I think the same can be said from the small blind. Typically, if he has ace king or better, aces, kings, he's going to 3-bet with players behind. He's not going to risk just calling, right? So this is a much better flop for us and our position in this particular situation. So that's why I fire out a bet of 125, a little bit on the larger side because we have no diamonds and we want to charge straight and flush draws. Action is over to the small blind who kind of hems and haws saying he's not really worried about me, worried about the player in the middle, which isn't cool, shows his neighbor his hand. So maybe he had an ace or pocket jacks or something like that. So he makes the laydown. Action is on the middle position player who decides on a call. Heads up action, and we get a 7 of spades on the turn. So we got ace, king of diamonds, 6, 7 of spades. We improve, make a pair at least. Now, middle position player does the leads out for $225. Now let's talk about what that looks like. All right, just calling and then leading out into the aggressor. Think about how often you guys do this and how strong you are if and when you ever do it. It doesn't happen that often, and normally when it is done, it's done with a marginal 1-pair hand, say like ace 10 in this situation, or a draw. Because we've already ruled out aces, kings, ace, king. Now we think, is it pocket sixes? Well, why would he just lead out, right? He's going to want to let me either bluff or continue betting with ace, king, ace, queen. So he's going to want to check raise or just check call down if he thinks he's behind. So pocket sixes not there, ace 7's not there. I have a 7. That's not a hand he's just limp calling 50 with. So we feel like we can put max pressure on like a 1-pair hand like ace 10 or push him off a draw. So this is when I decide to rip it all in for just under $1,000.
All in. Richard.
Was your heart pounding along with mine right there? Well, he made the call, as you heard. So now we're not feeling great about it. Don't think this opponent calls off with a draw, so we think he might have made a hero call here with just an ace, so we need some help. River brings a jack of diamonds, and my opponent quickly rolls over 4, 5 of diamonds for a rivered flush. So we did turn an open-ended straight with it, so we had quite a bit of equity, but we still got the money in, a 65% favorite, so you can't complain about that. I mean, I know some people are going to say, Rob, you didn't even have to be involved with Queen 7 there, but I think you need to look past that. The important thing is, are you getting in the money good for over a 400 big blind pot? And we did, and we just didn't hold, so can't complain.
And at number 6, Jaman Burton is playing in a 5-10 cash game at the Bellagio in Vegas. And you can hear it in his voice. boy, do we hear the frustration at the end of this one.
This hand, the middle position player is open to $30 off a really short stack. He has $400, or 40 big blinds. I find the call on the button with pocket fives, and the big blind comes along. It feels like it's been forever since I flopped a set, so seeing the flop of 5 of spades, queen of spades, 10 of hearts, and I gotta admit, it's pretty damn exciting. The big blind checks, the original opener bets $50, and I call, with the hopes of not losing the big blind behind me, but he folds anyway. The turn is really good for me. It's the queen of hearts, and the middle position player now continues for $90. Now we're at a decision point, and could honestly go either way. We could raise, but with him so short, a raise sizing would essentially be for all his chips and would look pretty damn strong. Or we could call, knowing that regardless of his action on the river, it's going to be pretty easy getting the rest of the money in. We have this pot on lock. We just call his $90 bet. And then we proceed to see one of the worst possible cards hit the river. Another 10. Our lock just went to shit. He checks. He has crumbs left in his stack. And if I bet, I can't imagine a hand that he would call with that I could actually beat. So I check behind and lose to ace-10 offsuit.
Number 5 this week, and Ashley Sleeth is playing in a $1,000 World Series of Poker Super Turbo Bounty Tournament in, of course, Las Vegas. And the joys of a bounty.
In this one, Under the Gun opens to 1,700. The blinds are up to 600 now. Under the Gun 2 calls, cutoff calls, small blind is also in there, and everybody's super capped except for Under the Gun because they all would have ISO'd him. He only had 9,800 to start the hand. So they all would have ISO'd him trying to go after his bounty if they had something good. So when I am in the big blind and look down at pocket kings, I mean, it's a dream scenario. It looks like I'm trying to squeeze everyone out of the pot and go after all this dead money. And I just have it. So all that being said, I jam it in for 13,300 because, especially like I told you guys at the beginning of the tournament, there's an added 8,600 or so chips in there whenever somebody goes all in. So that is a significant amount of chips, and you're going to get called a lot lighter. The Under the Gun player calls all in almost instantaneously. Under the Gun 2 folds, cutoff folds, and when it's back to small blind, he really goes into the tank. I mean, he's shuffling his chips, he's doing a whole chip dance, moving around, and he finally looks pained and sticks in the call for 11,600 more. Oh my god. Now I know why, because he reveals his hand is 7-6 offsuit. So the small blind is just chasing after these 2 bounties that are in the middle. Like I said, you're gonna get called light because there's all of that extra incentive for them to bust you. And I flip over my hand, and then Under the Gun unfortunately has pocket aces. Just running into it. Kings versus aces. Feels like that's happening a lot this summer. Anyway, on to the flop. Flop comes out 10-5-3. The turn is an 8, so now the small blind has an open-ended and has a lot of outs to just bust both of us. But the river breaks out. The river is a 7 of clubs. I lose a huge portion of my stack. Aces now triples up. We're just trying to find any spot now to jam all in and start to build back up to at least starting stack.
At number 4, Brantzen is playing in a 5-10 cash game at the Bellagio in Vegas. And it's a pretty straightforward hand in this one, but keep watching to the very end. Trust us, it's worth it.
I pick up 5-7 of spades in the hijack. The cutoff had to post $10 for his bathroom break, so I opened a bit bigger to $40. 5-7 suited in the hijack is definitely on the looser side, but what's the worst that can happen? Anyway, only the cutoff calls were heads up to a flop of King Deuce 3 with 2 spades, and I put in a C-bet of $40. The cutoff makes the call, and the turn is a 9. My holding has no showdown value here with 7 high, and my range should have a lot more strong kings than my opponent. I continue the pressure, and I bet $120. If I get raised, I can let it go. But the cutoff makes the call, and the river comes the 6 of spades. Cha-ching! We hit our flush. Time to go for value now. I bet $300, and this sends my opponent into the tank. He looks visibly uncomfortable. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. I'm begging for his call already. But then he goes all in. And now all that discomfort that I've been seeing seems like a giant act.
Just the Hollywood, huh? Hold the Hollywood on me.
This man's trying to win an Oscar. I should fold facing a raise on the river. It's just such an underbluffed spot. I know he has it in my bones, but I can't seem to hit the fold button. I make the call, and he of course shows ace queen of spades for a higher flush. 5-7 of spades, huh? What's the worst that could happen?
In at number 3, then, and Rampage Poker. Your boy Ethan is playing in the $1,000 World Series of Poker 6-handed tournament in Vegas. And there is the perfect river to give Ethan a chance to cash.
After paying the blinds a few more times, I pick up pocket fours, the hand, in the low jack. I'm first to act with about 15 big blinds. At this stage, there's about 400 players left in the tournament, and this is for everyone at home that sweated out that bracelet tournament. I am all in here, first to act. The player at my left with a massive stack. Bad news immediately as he raises to 100,000 to isolate. Oh no, this can't be good. Then onto the button player who goes all in for about 150,000, give or take. Oh dear, this has become a very bad situation as it's a three-way all in. Pocket fours can never be good here, but it hasn't failed me yet. I see that we're up against pocket jacks to my left and pocket queens on the button. Going to a flop, give me a 4 dealer. The flop comes 5-3-3. Oh my god, that is as close as you could possibly get. But the turn comes a deuce. More outs. I'm open-ended and a set draw. Come on, dealer. It's a 6 on the river. For my tournament life, I find the disgusting triple up. Pocket fours is the hand. The legend lives on. You can't freaking lose all-ins with pocket fours. For this fat triple up, my stack is now up to 140,000. I'm so hyped and fist bumping in my head. Whew.
Number 2 this week, and Kiran, close to broke, is playing in a $25-50 cash game at the King's Lounge in Vegas. If you've never heard of the King's Lounge, that is the cash game area that they put together as a part of the World Series of Poker. This year, it was at the very back of the Paris Ballroom. And there's always a good handful of tables playing cash while tournaments go on around them. So, how does Kiran do in this hand? Well, it's a good one. Always helpful when the opponent you're playing against just doesn't understand the math.
This is a pretty fun one where I look down at pocket fours for middle position. I end up making it 150 to go. Cutoff makes it 475 to go. The action is folded over to one of the button players. There's not one. I mean, there is only one. There's not many. Anyways, he ends up making the cold call. And again, he's definitely one of the interesting characters at the table. The action is folded over to me. Pretty easy to call here. We're playing plenty of money behind. In excess of, I don't know, 7,000 behind calling this bet. So we end up making the call here. Looking to flop something magical, which it does. It just does. The flop comes 8-4 deuce with 2 spades and a club. Wow. This is a magical flop for me and hopefully reasonable for my opponents. We check over to the very interesting character on the button who just says 2,500. And he says it again. The dealer makes sure that is in fact what he said. And he says once again, $2,500 to go. If you guys are good at math, which I'm not, that is definitely more than the size of the pot. That's a massive bet. It seems like it's in excess of $1,000 over the price of the current pot. And yeah, what do we do here? I have about $6,800 remaining in my current stack. I feel like calling would be goofy And it feels like getting it all in now is the only option that I have available for me. So with the action on me, it doesn't really matter what my opponent behind me does, so I end up making the jam all in for $6,800. The initial raiser decides to fold, and I'll let the video play now for you guys to see. I'll raise up the volume a little bit so you guys can kind of hear what's going on.
I'm not folding. So do you want to call? So how much you have? So, yeah. He bet 25.
My opponent says that he is not calling, but he is also not folding. The dealer seems to be very confused about what he's talking about because he has exposed his hand as he shows ace-5 of spades. Yeah, that is a flush draw, the nut flush draw, and a gut shot. This gentleman currently has 33.5% against any single holding that I have. It does not matter whether I have eights, it doesn't matter if I have fours or deuces. At the very minimum, he has 33.5%. I only jam for a little bit more, whatever, like 3x his bet. And he doesn't like it. He's not happy about it, and he just, you can hear him. He's pretty much in distress. After a very long tank, and pretty much my heart in my throat at this point. I feel like I'm sweating bullets. I know I have the best hand, but I'm going to have to fade a lot of outs. My opponent decides to make the fold. Oh my goodness, what is going on? We just won $4,000 without even having to go to showdown against somebody that at the very worst case scenario had 33% equity in the holding. What the heck just happened? Oh my gosh, man. I mean, that was incredible. We'll take the fold because we won the entire pot, which is massive, but 33% of the time I'm losing the whole pot. So, okay, nice.
And coming in at number 1 this week, playing in a 2-5 cash game at the MGM National Harbor in Maryland, is Wolfgang Poker. And what on earth is happening here? Why can't I ever find opponents that play like this?
1,000 in our stack, and I look down at ace-queen of clubs from the big blind. With the straddle on and under the gun calling, the cutoff decides to raise it up to $50. This is definitely a really good spot to go for another re-raise and make it $150, but I just decided to flat call here, and the under the gun now re-raises to $260. Let me profile this under the gun player. He's an action player. He's been 3-betting a bunch and losing a bunch as well. When the cutoff bet folds here for that $50 bet, I decided to look up the under the gun player here. We could get into a large pot here against a spewy opponent, which is definitely what we want to be doing, although it is better to be the one with the aggression. So we're going to see what the flop brings in. On a 5-5 deuce board, I start with a check here. We have some backdoor draws like the wheel, maybe the backdoor club draw. I check it over to under the gun, and he bets out for $185. Now, could he be doing this with pocket pairs? Sure. Could he be doing this with king queen, queen jack? Yeah, that's also in his range as well. So I think with my backdoor draws and my ace high here, I'd need to be putting in $185. I played the hand weird so far, so I can't just give up now. $185 more going into the middle, and we see a beautiful card on the turn, the 4 of clubs. Brings in the backdoor nut flush draw. It also gives us a gutter to the 3, giving us probably the best hand. The action's on me. Picking up all this additional equity, I want to put him in a really tough spot here. I have around $550 left in my stack, and I decide we need to go for all of it here and put max pressure on any of his hands like 6s through 9s. Maybe we can get him to fold. I rip it all in for $550, and what does he do that we do not want to see? The snap call. Like literally within seconds, he puts a chip into the middle. We are in tough shape, and we're going to need to suck out on the river. Any ace, queen, 3, or club hopefully would give us the best hand. But when the river bricks out the jack of hearts, we're crushed. There's no way we can win this pot here when we get snap called on the turn. 2,050 in the middle, and I turn over my cards because I need to see what he has here. And he turns over ace-10 offsuit and mucks his cards. We're going to scoop down this $2,000 pot with ace-high. He snap called me on the turn with a gutter and a worse ace-high. How brutal would it have been if a 10 of spades or 10 of diamonds peels off on the river and he would have scooped us there? But we are ecstatic. $2,000 coming my way. This might have been the largest pot I've ever won with just ace-high. And definitely a strange one, but no complaints on my end. Let's freaking go.
Well, that's it, folks. Another episode of 10 of the Best. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You know it helps out the channel. We know it helps out the channel. Just press that red button right down there. We certainly appreciate it. And as always, there is a full list of links to the original content in the description box below. So if you want to see more of the video that we got the best of these hands from, then feel free to click on those links. We know the original content makers will appreciate it. Until next time then, good luck at the felt.